Today I'm going to show you how to paint any landscape from beginning to end, and I'll show you my entire process, how I approach painting something I've never painted before, and what I do at each stage. So I've got the reference picture in the top right hand corner of the screen, and you can see the main thing I'm trying to decide here is whether I want to make that lighthouse a positive or negative figure. So whether I want to actually color it in and let it stand out from the background, or just leave it white. And I'm going through now doing a quick sketch and putting in some general colors of the sky, some of the rocks as well, and also just doing the bottom one. And at the same time, you know, I like to play around with some different colors and just see how they'll look. Another decision that I have to make is, you know, the clouds, whether I want them soft, whether I want some harder shaped clouds in there. So these are really important things to consider when you're painting, because you're going to have subjects in the pictures that you're going to refer to, but a lot of the time you're not going to paint them exactly as they appear. You're going to add something or take something away, especially take something away, because most reference pictures are very difficult in terms of complex shapes, and there's too much information in there. So the top one there, I've decided to color a lot of the rocks in darker and just add in some darker clouds in the background just to see what that will look like. And I painted in the lighthouse as well so that it stands out against the background. And it's really important, if you have a sketchbook, do a couple of sketches before you actually start your painting, especially if you haven't done this painting before, this particular subject. So I'm just trying out a bit of gouache, a bit of white paint there to experiment a bit with the waves. Now this second one that I'm doing here is very similar, except I'm leaving the lighthouse white just to see what that might look like. And I'm also playing around with the figures. So I'm going to get started now. I think I've got a good idea of what I want. So I'm going in fairly quickly with some orange mixed with red. And that's going to be for a sunset situation. So I wanted to exaggerate that sunset. In the picture it looks like it's either sunrise or sunset, but I just want to exaggerate that a bit more. And I've got this wash of orange and I'm mixing it in with this blue, this cobalt blue on top, just allowing that to blend in a bit. And I'm going to carry that wash slightly down the page and try to add in some clouds. And most of the time I've been using a flat brush for these washes, and even with some of the clouds. I've used a size 6 to 8 brush for some of the smaller clouds down the bottom, so it just makes it a lot easier if you adapt the brush to the size of the object you're trying to draw or paint. And I'm painting in these rocks with some, I think it's light, what is it? Raw sienna, bit of raw sienna. And top areas as well, leaving a little bit of white on the page. And now I'm trying to define these rocks. I've got two figures on the far left of the lighthouse that I've left white as well, and I'm just going around with a mixture of greys, blues, a bit of brown, and just defining these rocks a bit more. So I want to leave some areas of the paper lighter just to indicate a bit of that sunlight bouncing off. but especially in the foreground I want to make these rocks stand out a lot more, especially when compared to the ones in the background. So you don't want to make things too detailed in the background. I'm painting these rocks in a particular way to make it look like there's a bit of a slope that's going up, so that the rocks are piled up on top of each other. Just darkened the area of the water now and added in some cobalt blue. And I'm doing that as well with some of the greys and a bit of the blue for the rocky area. And I'm just experimenting with the clouds now. I want some clouds that are sharper and stick out a bit. And I've used a purplish color there. So we'll see what happens. Give the whole thing a dry. And it should dry a fair bit lighter actually. Always make sure you paint things a bit darker than what you anticipate. Now last wash, I'm going through and I'm defining these rocks, especially in the foreground, a lot more. Make them look a bit more detailed and harsher as well. And I'm darkening some of the rocks near the back and near where those figures are as well. And I'm not going all the way up to where this car is. I'm doing the car at the moment, the little shadow underneath, because I want to leave that area lighter just to indicate a road that's running up to the lighthouse. One of the things I've done as well is that I've made the lighthouse a bit larger, brought the whole perspective forward, because in the reference picture the lighthouse is quite far back and I want it to be a big focus in this painting. So you always, when you start out painting, think about what you want it to look like in the end, have an idea of that and just try to strive towards that. And sometimes you're going to change halfway, but it's always really essential to have some kind of plan. I've done these figures in a bluish color, bluish grey, and now I'm going through with a very small brush to do some of the fine details on the top of the lighthouse. You don't have to be exact, just to indicate that top area. And I'm adding in some of the little windows and doors as well. Added a bit of a shadow to the right hand side of the door just to indicate the light catching onto the left side of the door. And I want to darken this area a bit more near the water and add in some impressions of waves. Didn't think it was dark enough. What I've decided to do here is just add in a bit of white gouache to indicate some of those waves hitting the rocks as well. With the gouache, you don't want to go overboard. A little bit's fine, but if you add too much of it, it starts to overwhelm the entire painting, especially because it's not transparent. I'm adding in a few extra rocks near the foreground and just detailed that road, drawing a line running horizontally. And I'm now adding a bit of gouache to these figures to help them stand out, indicate a bit of light bouncing off them. And at this stage I'm almost done, putting in these little birds as a finishing touch. That also helps with the perspective and just looks nice as a finishing touch. Everything else from here is really just a bonus. Let me know how you went in this tutorial in the comments below, and remember to subscribe for new weekly tutorials. Thanks for watching.